Welcome to Mind Your Business. I am Amma Duncan, founder of the Fabulous Woman Network. I love to support the growth of individuals and organizations through coaching, training, consulting, mentoring, events, so that we can all create wealth and impact people, as we should be doing as fabulous children of God. Mind Your Business is my weekly video podcast in which we get to talk a lot about business. Sometimes I interview people like today. Other times I do my jabbing alone. Today I have a very fabulous woman joining us all the way from the US. Her name is Rissi Carrey. So now let's talk about Rissi. She is a member of the clergy, a counselor, a transformational coach who desires to empower others to walk in total freedom and gain capacity to live out their purposes to their fullest potential. Rissi is especially drawn to the broken woman who has gone through deep trauma and feels stuck. She is dedicated to unraveling the tangling emotional issues that keep women bound. She uses her signature program, Emotional Detox, to give women the tools and give voice and language to their pain as she guides them through emotional healing, identity work, and peeling back the layers of self-doubt and crippling fear. Say amen. Rissi also offers inner healing from generational trauma, physical trauma, unmet needs, unresolved issues, mother wounds, and father wounds for those who desire a forward-living, purpose-driven life. Rissi is a licensed minister, a graduate of Institute for Integrative Nutrition, the largest holistic education for health and wellness in the United States. She's a candidate for a master's degree in clinical social work, and she has an interest in the integration of social work and spirituality. She desires to bridge spirituality and evidence-based research in relation to emotional well-being. Rissi is the CEO of Rissi Oasis. Rissi Oasis, I hope I got that correct. Well, she'll be telling us shortly. So CEO of Rissi Oasis Incorporated, a business dedicated to wellness and wholeness in the mind, body, soul, and spirit. Ladies, gentlemen, as usual, get yourself a glasser or a cuppa, notepad, pen, and let's dig in, have this conversation with Rissi. Thank you so much for joining us all the way from New York. Oh my goodness, thank God for technology, right?
Yep.
Thank you so much, Rissi, for making time for this interview. I've been looking forward to it forever since Lady Abba mentioned you, and then I checked out your work. You're doing amazing. And today, for the next 30 or so minutes, we are going to talk all about what you're doing. So awesome. Thank you, first of all.
Thank you for having me.
Right. So let's start with, I've already read your bio and all. You're doing amazing. But tell us about you in a way that we don't know, that perhaps you've not shared it anywhere or my audience doesn't know yet. Let's start from there.
So I was born in Ghana by a Nigerian father and a Ghanaian mother. Mm. In my early young adulthood, I traveled to Geneva to work for the UN. I don't know why. What is interesting is I got saved in the UN chapel in Geneva. Quite interesting. And then, I was in a relationship before I left. And so that was an unfinished business. So my husband, as fate wanted to bring us back together, we all came back to the US. He was in England and we came to the US. We got married at the UN chapel in New York.
Wow.
So there is this thread of global and all different facets of my life that I believe is an unfinished business. I don't know even why that I had to put that out there. But that is part of my journey. There is some mystery about me that is still unfolding and it's showing up in the work I do. And it's actually even showing up in people like Abba and yourself, and I believe all the other women, and the thread that the Lord is weaving. So I'm excited to plug in and get to know you all and see where the journey leads.
Wow. Wow. I mean, that's amazing that at a young age you went to work with the UN in Geneva. Sounds so fancy. And yet you have a Ghanaian, well, your accent, I think it's more Ghanaian actually than Nigerian.
Absolutely.
So yes. But then of course when you hear the name, you're like, okay, I wish Kuntum for him. And then you start speaking and you're like, oh, she's just like me. So thank you so much for sharing that bit about your life. And so when I was reading your bio and I got to the point where it mentions broken women, I'm thinking, why specifically this kind of woman? And then I was looking at even your ministry consistently run through, you support such women. Can you share the story of what led you to decide these are the kinds of people I'm supporting at this time?
So everything has a generational piece. Life itself has a way of taking us. I love the bird Sankofa.
Yeah.
Because we always, history will teach us how to navigate life for the present moment. So I would say that maybe the first encounter of brokenness that I encountered or witnessed without consciously even being aware of that was my mother. Because, in this thing called womanhood, it's more of showing up and performing for others than you dealing with your own internal dialogue. So I guess watching her perform and do what she does best, very, very tenacious, resilient. But even as I was growing up and comparing and checking the boxes, I was like, there were pieces here that were never spoken about, that was never addressed. And so, I put it in that box. But even on my own journey, as a young woman in ministry, I encountered broken women who didn't even know they were broken. And they were in leadership. That was actually the scariest part. And so their brokenness touched me and wounded me and hurt me so badly. In the name of God. In the name of God. And so I had to pause and say, wait a second. This thread, this piece that brings insecurities, unresolved issues, mother wounds, father wounds, but because we have a little bit of power, we twist it around. We project it on people and call people names and do stuff. I'm like, this needs to be explored. But it didn't even start with it needs to be explored. I said to myself, the way this thing does and feels, I don't want to do it to anybody. So it started with me like, how do I purge? How do I cleanse? How do I rid myself of this poison so that nobody will encounter me in that toxicity? So it started with me. And then the Lord and I started digging and digging just for me. But as I dug for me, I recognized that, wow, this is a universal situation. This is the woman's story, particularly. Those of us who were colonized, enslaved, we're talking to the diaspora here. And the way we are supposed to show up and do for others whilst we are actually shoving down our own pain. And so it took me getting to uncover my own. And then allow the Spirit of God within me the time to pour into me. So that when he had poured into me enough, I knew that this is not just for me, but it is for womankind. And so that is the premise of what I do.
I have to commend you. People, or some people, go through certain experiences and through that find themselves, and then they just sit quietly on it. But you decided that I have found this light. I must show others how to find their own. And yeah, just talking about it, I'm getting my signature goosebumps. So bless you for your beautiful ministry, because you're so right. It's a universal. I mean, I have been there. I don't even know if I should say I've been there, or I have my own moments, and I'm surrounded by very fabulous women leaders, like you even said, people that we look up to and think they've got it all together, wearing nice big earrings, but you never know what it
and
is.
Fancy glasses like mine.
Exactly. But you never know underneath all that fanciness, what they are really dealing with. So it's really helpful to have someone to talk to come and then help them unpack things and help them know they are not alone. And then, oh, God bless you. God just bless you. Now, speaking of these women, in the fabulous woman community, we have so many wonderful women, just like us, doing the best they can for God's glory. And they meet all these stumbling blocks. And I find that a lot of the stumbling blocks are even internal. And I bet in the line of your work, you meet this a lot. And I mean, you can see clearly, oh my God, you can just do what it is that you want to do. But then there is something inward stopping them. For such a woman who is probably listening, and well, even though we are saying women, I know that sometimes men also watch. For such a person, what advice do you have? I mean, obviously, hopefully they can reach out to you later. But for now, what can you tell them that, hey, do this to start with, so that it can help them to a point where at least they start making progress?
I knew we were going to get there this early in the conversation because of the type of work you do, grooming leadership and pointing them in the right direction.
Yeah.
Without digging into these stories and going back in our timeline to uncover these wounds, instead of repressing them and literally excavating to a point where real healing happens, they will sit. Sometimes they are not festering. They are just sitting and waiting for their moment. And like you, I'm glad you brought men in. Guess what? It wasn't too long ago. If you were tuning into our presidential situation, the previous situation, it was a wounded soul in a big person's body, with what never dealt with. And the entire world experienced this stench of the festering wound that was never dealt with. I think that is the biggest stage situation I can point as an example. But we see them in our pulpits every time. You have people trashing people, saying they are preaching. You have people abusing people physically, sexually, emotionally. You have men and women claiming they are men and women of God, abusing their wives, spouses, children. So they get into the pulpit, and the people who see them and know how raw and broken they are, like, you are such a damn liar. I don't want to be like you. So we see them from the different facets, CEOs. I mean, we're talking about a spectrum of depth of deep things we have never dealt with. So Jana Truth, this freedom fighter, said something that if we don't go deep to uncover all the pullings of our ancestry and allow it to push us forward, then we are living a lie. How do we live that lie? Because you see, some of us who went through that rape, who went through the abuse that because of their livelihood, and mothers stay in relationships that are crappy because they don't have money. And so when that stepfather was abusing you and you told her, because she doesn't know where to go, she told you, stop breaking this home. So nobody believed. And some of us went on to be successful and are doing fabulous things. But that thing is there waiting for the right trigger, for an explosion that will not only impact you, but impact everything around you. And some of us, because of the things we endured, you have a daughter and you have this helicopter hawk eye over her, like, I'm going to make sure what happened to me will not happen to her. And you are in torment. And you are harassing and oppressing this child because you've not dealt with your wound. And you are so afraid for her or him. And this thing keeps encircling you and you behave in an irrational way and nobody understands. Sometimes you scream your way out of it or say, because I said so. But it doesn't address the wound, the anguish, or the torment that you are facing. So I believe 100% that uncovering these wounds in the right atmosphere with a skilled person who you feel safe with is the best thing that the gift you can give to yourself. Because guess what? If you are performing at a peak performance now, you will explode when that healing happens, because there are things in you that are still not birthed. And that wound is holding you back. I don't care how successful you are. And actually, sometimes it is the wound that has brought you into the wrong success. Wrong success means I'll prove to the world, I'll prove to the naysayers, I'll prove this and that and that. Yeah. And yet that your God-given calling is not touched because you are running and chasing after the wind. So it's so key. It's the fundamental. And my prayer is that I will catch young adults, I will catch people going through the quote-unquote counseling for marriage. Because if you deal with your baggage and the guy deals with his baggage and he sees the triggers and the potential things, what we call our defaults, and you are able to deal with them before you fuse together, then you are both aware of the potential fault lines. And then you have something, a foundation to say, we're going to start working on this.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. I mean, what one of the things I say is, well, I can't go back, but if I could, I would love to have worked on myself first before going through the whole counseling, and all that for marriage. No, I needed to know who I was, understand me, but then I don't know whether we didn't have it or I didn't seek it. Now I know better, and like you, I'm also preaching to people, find yourself first, know who you are. What do you even like? What are you dealing with before you go and add your wahala to somebody else's, and expect that they should make you happy. And, it's just, I'm just loving this conversation. Now, based on your experiences and the, all these things that you've shared about the brokenness of people, especially in leadership and all, what advice, you've already mentioned that definitely speaking to other people, like professionals, help, absolutely. What advice do you have for someone who says, well, I wish I could speak to a professional, but it costs X and X, and genuinely, I don't have that resource now to be able to speak to somebody who has gone through X amount of years of training to be where they, it can cost. So what can they start with if they can't afford that professional help?
This is what I would say. They can start basically with journaling. They can come to my room, some of my rooms in Clubhouse, and those thought-provoking questions will send them on a journey. But one thing that I have vowed is to make this accessible for everybody. Yes, I had to actually go back and retrain. I'm finishing my clinical hours in psychotherapy. And yes, it can be an arduous journey, but for the sake of the broken woman, I have made it accessible. affordable. I have made it, I believe, conducive to a point where I don't want anybody to have an excuse.
Mm. Yeah.
Because I ask some people, if money is not the object, do you think you need this? But what is actually interesting is that conversation to have with yourself. Are you actually sick and tired of the hamster way of living? Because you know that when we cherish something, or we know we've put value and priority over something, we find a way to get it.
Yes, absolutely.
So these are the questions I asked a woman who would come and say that. And that is why when I have interviews like yours, I would offer in that interview, hey, if I get 10 of you, I would slash a third or whatever. My goal is come and taste and see the freedom of what this really means for you. And what I found with the group setting is that then you are all bouncing off of each other and processing. As you process on your own, that, humanity, womankind also comes together to get the work done. And people will be like, but people know me. Yes, we can do real private sessions as well. If people feel like, I'm well-renowned and, I don't want my stuff to go out there. Yes, we can do that too.
Yes. Sometimes that's a concern for some people. Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. But I mean, you're a professional and professionals know what they're doing. So that is never something to worry about. Okay. Yes, I like this. Okay. So before I let you go, we are obviously going to find out how to reach out to you and a few other things, but I have three sentences that I want you to finish for me. The first one is, if I could advise my younger self in one short sentence, I would say,
you were brave. You were tenacious. And you were right.
You were right. I like that. I am fabulous because
everything I touch turns to give life, because I give life.
Fantastic. And then finally, I know you're a woman in business as well. So one book that has greatly helped you in business is?
Cindy Trim's 40 Days So Fast. And somebody will say, what has that got to do with business? Guess what? When I knew I had to heal and I didn't know how to heal, her book was the catalyst. Because the trail that I'm blazing was an uncharted water. So I was confused. I didn't know what to do. But her book sent me on a journey where I was like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, fantastic. We love Cindy Trim, don't we? Oh, the way she talks.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Now, you mentioned a program. I'm aware that you have a program that you use. It's an online program, I believe, to help women. Can you tell us more about it and how to access it, please?
So my Emotional Detox, I do them in groups. So I'm very flexible. So if I find those 10 women or 8 women who are ready to process, we go through, there is a 4-session one that is for the person who wants to do it. They're thinking about cost, and yet they know there are things they want to work on. So we'll do that 4-session. They get the materials. They get to the process of the generational timeline, and then we work through forgiveness, because forgiveness is for you. And sometimes we realize so much that before you even begin to deal with the wounds, you have to deal with releasing those situations. So when we deal with that, then we begin to uncover the wounds. But then that is where the 4 sessions stops. So it is just to show you that, hey, there is this work to be done. I have the 7 sessions where we go all the way, tackle the wounds, father wounds, mother wounds, and then we deal with all of that. I have the 9 sessions where we deal with identity, because who are you? Outside of the roles you play.
Yes.
So there is something for everybody and based on budget. And like I said, I know for sure that I don't want money to be a barrier to any woman who knows they need this work. So I go by groups and how I'm led by the Spirit. So that is the key piece. And yeah.
Fantastic. And I believe we have the link. Okay, so we have the link to the social media platform that you're always on.
Clubhouse.
I can't believe I forgot the name.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah, we have that. So yes, we'll get the website as well. So we add it to the caption for anyone who is watching from anywhere in the world, right? Because you don't need to be in the US to access this.
No, we do Zoom. I do Zoom, and I work with people's time. You'll be surprised if your ladies, 5 or 8 of them, and I actually encourage sister friends to do it together because you cheer each other on. You have something to sort of bounce off of each other. People who have known each other, it is a good thing. And when maybe you and your sister friends decide to do it at 5 a.m. GMT, I will calculate and show up for you on my time. Because you see, because I know the value. Dr. Agri says you train one woman, you train a nation. Mm-hmm. So one healed woman. And the revolution that will happen not only in her family, but the children and her business and the lives that she's going to touch. For me, it is the critical juncture that this work really, really is based on. So, yeah.
Absolutely. One woman just causes a lot of things to change. So I really believe in that thing. I mean, when I was a child and I used to hear that statement, I thought, oh, whatever. But now I really understand it. There's something about a woman, it's not just her. It's always never just her. It's always about more than just her. So
absolutely.
That's brilliant. And then, so we are going to get your website as well. But apart from Clubhouse, are you active on any other platform or these?
I get on Facebook, once in a while. I'm embedded in your group because Abba encouraged me, to get in.
You.
So again, as I will advertise, I'll put things up there and stuff like that because, like I said, this program works well, particularly the beginning of the year, as people are trying to pivot. Listen, this pandemic has brought most of us to our knees, already dealing with things that we've pushed down. And now that they have become flagrant, we are like, there is something I know I have to touch, but I have not touched. Formally, we don't even talk about mental health. Suddenly, now it's a buzzword. It's good to begin to unpack these things. So, beginning of the year, it's a good time. I also love the season of Lent. What I love about the season of Lent is that most of us are already having devotional kind of attitudes and stuff like that. So it works very well. And I love the fact that Lent ends with Good Friday and then the resurrection and then that awakening on that holy, what do you call it? Resurrection Sunday. Then you resurrect with him in that newness.
Yes.
So I also like that season, processing people. So
fantastic. Well, thank you so much.
You're already done? Wow.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's short, it's sweet, and it's packed. And I love your calming nature. I'm like a ball. And then you are like the wall who is like catching me. Relax. So I love it. Thank you. Thank you for sharing a bit of your story. Thank you for encouraging us. I mean, I bet there's a woman leader going through something and thinking nobody will get me. And I get that sometimes, like, who helps me? I help everyone else, but what about me? Who helps me? So it's good to know that everybody has help. Nobody is ever on their own, and
absolutely
resources available to support all of us.
Absolutely.
Like you.
Yes.
All right, then. Thank you so much for making the time, and you have a fabulous new year.
You as well. And again, I am so grateful that you were able to make the time so that we could get together, so that these wonderful women will realize that there is help. They don't have to suffer in silence or fake it to make it.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.